shall describe, given its very particular historical context in an immediate post-colonial world, the adaptations and alterations in Césaire's text are all highly political choices. As a text specifically appropriated for black theatre, Césaire's Tempest can be read as a text constructed with distinct conscious choices by the writer, which embody a delivery of his ideas of negritude, black identity, and his reflections on different paths to his liberation of the colonized mind. When thus viewing the play as a construct with theatrical implications of positioning a mulatto body on stage to represent Ariel becomes a very interesting choice. Intriguing. How traditional depictions of Shakespeare's Ariel, who, although a magical being, is nevertheless also a native of the island, has almost unanimously been interpreted for stage as white, while the other native, Caliban, by contrast, is almost always dark-skinned. This historical representation points clearly to the mirroring of the colonist ideologies of Manichaeism. Now, Schultz Fanon first drew on the Manichaean allegory to posit the colonialist division of colonizer and colonized into dichotomies of white versus black, civilized, uncivilized, educated versus ignorant, etc. Césaire, however, in his rewriting subverts this by introducing a mulatto body on stage, a body that in its mixed race falls within a grey area on the Manichaean scale. Not only does mulatto Ariel then disrupt this Manichaean representation, it also grants a hitherto unforeseen visibility to Ariel and sets up the mulatto body as a powerful site for post-colonial discourse. Now, John Muhammad on Manichaean aesthetics emphasizes how the colonialist texts, either as universal or covert propaganda of colonizers, are almost always based on dualistic worldviews. Césaire both critiques and subverts this, however, in various means through the mulatto Ariel, from his complex identity to his dynamics with the master that bring to life various nuances. Complicating the Manichaean dichotomy of good versus bad, for example, Césaire's Ariel is much more ethical than Prospero, guided strongly by a moral conscience which the white master clearly seems to lack. The so-called slave actually serves as Prospero's moral guide, seeing Prospero's injustice, but remaining hopeful that he can someday convince him to put an end to it. Césaire also subverts the educated versus ignorant dichotomy of colonialism and Manichaeism, positing Ariel to be much more intellectually learned and often wiser than his master. In addition to possessing a wider array of magic or knowledge, he also has larger intellectual notions of freedom, even having the acute understanding that the colonizer's consciousness must also come to an awareness of its own wrongs in order for there to be true emancipation for humanity. It is all these complications and nuances that contribute to Ariel's identity and his integrationist approach in his quest for freedom. Now, Ariel's identity, through its assimilation of the master's systems, is strongly hybrid when contrasted with Caliban's, for instance. However, these identities are also not fixed, which is reminded to us by Césaire's adaptation of the West African idea of the mass performance. As a dramatic technique throughout the play, we see that the mask worn by Ariel and the other characters serve to challenge the stability of identity found in European theatre, an important political statement. Now, Césaire, in his writings and teachings on negritude, continuously stresses on the need to decolonize the mind of the colonized in order to achieve true emancipation. Through the concept of negritude, he emphasizes the need for Africans to come to a concrete consciousness of their black history and black heritage. The nuances added by Césaire to his Ariel can be read as powerfully serving to reflect these own values of negritude, but also the conflicts and complications within it. So Césaire importantly ties in this idea of a black consciousness when establishing a decolonized identity. For example, we see that the mulatto Ariel is also highly conscious of his linking to origins. He refers to indigenous trees as real and to Caliban as his. He shows clear signs of black consciousness, and he looks out for Caliban and warns him of Prospero's plans. So the two slaves, even though their methods are different, are united in their quest for emancipation. So the greatest departure from Ariel in Shakespeare's play is in the character alterations done by Césaire in embodying a decolonized consciousness in his mulatto Ariel. Césaire's Ariel clearly shows these characteristics of a decolonized mind, as Chinweizu states, by showing initiative independent of his master and his ability to make conscious self-aware choices for his ultimate emancipation. Thus, Césaire's characterization of Ariel is useful as a means of displaying different versions of negritude, of decolonized black consciousness, possible despite the multiple lived realities and identities of colonized peoples.